Hi everyone. Today's episode is going to be a bit more emotional and personal. Grief is something we all face at some point in our lives, but it's not something we're really taught how to handle. So in this video, I wanted to share my experiences with the hope that it might bring some kind of comfort or guidance to you. Have you ever felt like the whole world stopped? Like nothing will ever be the same again? This is what grief feels like to me. It shatters time, it breaks your heart, and it leaves you questioning the world that you thought you understood. I have unfortunately experienced this more times than I'd like to admit. With each loss, it felt like a new part of me was being ripped away, and it left me in a situation where I had to figure out how to live with the emptiness that they left behind. Today, I want to share 5 things that I really wish someone had told me about grief. These are lessons that helped me not to move on, because you can't move on from losing someone that you love, but really to find some kind of peace in it. And I really hope it will help you too. Just so we are clear, this video is about losing someone physically. When someone you love passes away, it's not about breakups or losing friendships. Although sometimes you have to pretend that those people are dead in order to be able to move forward. But this is a whole different story. Without further ado, let's get into it. Number 1, let yourself feel and accept that it takes time. Grief is messy. It doesn't come with instructions, warnings, or a timeline to be followed. Some days you'll be okay, but other days a random song, random memory, a random smell could completely unravel you. And that's the harsh truth. Grief is not something you get over with, it's something that you learn to live with. Time does help. I won't say it fixes everything, but the pain becomes less sharp, less overwhelming, and it softens into something you carry instead of something that carries you, if it makes sense. For a very long time, personally, it took years before I could talk about the people I lost without breaking down. I didn't deal with the pain because it was easier to ignore it than face the reality. But I've learned in a hard way that ignoring the pain, ignoring the void, doesn't make it go away. Eventually you have to sit with the pain, and as hard as it is, it's the first step forward. Acknowledging it is the first step forward. If you are angry, be angry. If you want to cry, just cry. But let yourself feel whatever you're feeling, no matter how messy or uncomfortable it is. And please don't be judgmental of yourself. Be kind to yourself. There is no timeline, there is no checklist, there is no right way to grieve. Number 2, keep them close with small rituals. Losing someone that you love doesn't mean they stop being part of your life. One of the things that really helped me is creating small rituals for the people that I've lost in order to honor them. These rituals don't have to be big or complicated or expensive. These are just personal ways to feel connected to them. For me personally, I pray for them. Sometimes I could dedicate small things to them, such as my morning coffee or something that I've achieved during the day. And sometimes when I had a bad day, I look at the clouds and I imagine them there. I think about them. It feels like a conversation that I'm having, like in my mind I'm talking to them, but they're not physically with me. It has been comforting on so many ways to me personally, because I have been doing it since I was a kid, lying there staring at the ships in the sky and imagining people that I love to be there. So I guess it stayed with me. Rituals that you want to do, you can find your own ways to honor them. It could be cooking their favorite meal, listening to their favorite song, lighting a candle for them at night. Something that would remind you that they're still part of your life. Rituals like this are not just about remembering, they're about finding the comfort. They're about this feeling of continuity, a reminder that love you shared doesn't disappear even though they are gone. It's comforting to know that in a way they are still with you. And the best part is your rituals can be as unique as your relationship with them. Number 3, don't compare your grief to others. It's easier to look at how others grieve and feel like you're doing it all wrong. Your family maybe isn't emotional, but you're the one who's going through a breakdown. Or perhaps it's the opposite, you're the one who's feeling numb and they're the one who's crying. There is no right way to grieve. I used to all the time ask myself questions like, am I broken? Why can't I hold it together like other people? But the truth is, there is no right way to grieve. Comparing it to others is going to only make it harder and worse, because grief looks different for everyone. For a long time, I felt like I had to hold it together because my family seemed so composed. And I thought if I cried or showed my emotions, I would make them feel uncomfortable. But eventually I realized that holding it in wasn't helping anyone, least of all me. And your way of grieving is valid. We are taught that the grief has to be specific. It has to be stoic, private, quiet. And reality is, grief is different for everyone, and it's as unique as the love of you towards that person. So give yourself permission to grieve however you need to, whether it's crying, journaling, exercising, creating something, or just sitting in silence. Don't let cultural or societal expectations to dictate how you feel or how you grieve. Find comfort in small joys. When you lose someone, the whole world loses its color. And you don't feel the joy the way you used to. I have been there, unfortunately. I didn't feel anything the way I used to. The numbness was too heavy and impossible to shake. And in the middle of all the sadness, even the idea of looking for the joy felt overwhelming and exhausting. But over time, I have learned to find comfort in small joys and be grateful for them. You don't need big, dramatic moments to pull you out of these dark moments. Sometimes it's the tiniest things that make the biggest difference. For me, it's warmth of the sun on my face, and by the way, I live in UK, so I don't get that. Or even listening to the song that makes me feel something again. Don't get me wrong, those stuff don't erase the pain, and they're not supposed to, but they remind me that life still holds its beauty. And sometimes that's just enough. Small things are just enough. It's okay to start small and build up from there and take your time. You'll find those moments eventually, and when you do, hold on to them. Number 5, reach out or write it out. Therapy and support groups can be life-changing, but it's not for everyone. Not everyone can afford them. It's not accessible to everyone. Sometimes you might choose to not to reach out to your family members or your friends when you lose someone, because you might feel like it's impossible to do so. You might think, oh, they won't understand, or I don't want to be burden to them. But that's the thing, what makes you think you're a burden because you lost someone in your life? You shouldn't be ashamed of your grief. Even if you trust that person a little bit, try reaching out. Sometimes just having someone listen or offering a hug can be more than enough. If you don't have that person in your life or you don't feel ready to share yet, then grab a piece of paper or open Notes app, pour everything you're feeling into it. Write what you want to tell to the person that you lost and be as messy, as raw, as honest, as emotional as you can be. Do it as many times as you can and write as much as you want. You can keep those letters to yourself or you can choose to burn them. It's entirely up to you, but letting it out even in private can feel like a release. Now on to the bonus tip. Educate yourself and others about grief. Grief is a universal experience and it happens to all of us, but yet it's one of those things that no one really prepares us for. It's not taught in schools or colleges, not talked about enough in a society. So when it happens to us, we feel isolated and lonely. And let me tell you this, the more I learned about grief, the less lonely I started to feel. It could be through reading about it, watching videos like this, hearing stories of other people. It gives you a sense of connection. If you're someone who haven't experienced the loss but knows someone who did and you want to help them, then let me tell you this, you don't have to have all the answers and you don't have to fix their pain. And most importantly, you don't and you shouldn't tell them everything happens for a reason. Sometimes the most meaningful thing you can give is by being there and asking them questions about the person they lost. Sometimes, really, the presence is the greatest gift you can give to someone. Before I go, I want to leave you with this. Grief is one of the hardest feelings you'll ever face in your life, but it's also one of the most universal experiences. You are not alone, even if you feel like you are, and the pain doesn't go away, but it becomes a part of you that shapes who you are moving forward. And here's the hard truth. You don't know if the people that you love will be here next month, next week, or next year. If there is someone in your life that you have been holding on to resentment to or have unresolved issues with, take a moment to think about them. I'm not saying forgive and forget, but sometimes putting your pride aside and reaching out is a better choice. Regret hits harder than anger, and believe me, I'm talking from my experience. And sometimes all we have is the time right now. But if you have already lost someone and you're carrying that regret, I just want you to know that you did the best you could with what you knew at the time. Okay? Grief comes with a mix of emotions that we can't control. It doesn't make you a bad person. What matters is how you carry their memory moving forward. Being kind to yourself, being kind to others, by honoring them, learning from the past. This is what matters. Every loss that I've faced in this life have taught me something about love and life. It's very painful, but it's a reminder that how deeply we can care for one another. If there is one thing I want you to take away from this video, is the fact that please grieve in your own way and at your own pace. Be gentle to yourself, be patient with yourself, and remember the love you shared with the person who you lost doesn't disappear. It always stays with you. It always will stay with you, I promise. Thank you for spending this time with me, and if this video resonated with you, please like it and share it with someone who might need it. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.